Hello and welcome to NativShark Startup Podcast. I'm your host Caleb, and I'm brought to you with co-host Nicholas Walker. As
Yo.
always, uh, today's episode is sponsored by the NativShark platform. Yes, go and sign up for your 7-day free trial. Learn some Japanese. Um, yeah, there's our intro. Oh, we got another subscription. Hey, welcome back, Ursula. At the tier 3. Wow. Thank you so much. Much appreciate that. Got to keep those galaxy brain emotes. Yeah, welcome everyone. This is the fourth time we've done this. Yeah, we got a sub train going. Let's go. Yeah, fourth time we've done this. Yeah, looking forward to it. Lots of things to talk about today. People asked us some nice questions in the Discord, and a few from Twitter. So yeah, go ahead and follow NativShark at NativShark on Twitter, or you can follow me at Caleb Anderson. If you follow Nico, he doesn't ever check. But yeah, go ahead, give us a follow, and you can ask questions there as well, and we'll bring them up in the podcast. So yeah, how's it going, Nico? How's your last week been?
My last week has been very nice. Um, Going well, getting lots of stuff done. As we talked about in the last um, episode that we did, I've been doing lots and lots and lots of training freelance writers, editors, and translators. So that's all I ever have to talk about because it's all that I ever do. Um, but it's getting easier and easier every week because they're learning more and more about how we do things.
Hmm.
Also, I've had to part of doing this is there's this saying they have in the business world, which is uh, fire fast, hire slow. And I really don't like firing people because I'm a human being and I want other human beings to like me. And I always feel bad because I start to imagine all the reasons they want to have the job that they've gotten. But we're we are following that mantra. And so we are firing freelancers if they don't follow instructions pretty quickly, which is something we haven't done in the past. And I think we've suffered quite a lot from not doing that.
Hmm.
Um, because if someone doesn't follow instructions at the beginning, like what makes you think they're going to follow instructions consistently for months and years?
Yeah.
We give people at least a second or third chance. But
Right.
yeah, so
Hmm.
getting better at firing freelancers in addition to hiring, training, and assisting them to do what we need to do
Right.
has been the challenge of last week. I had to fired two or three of them.
Hmm. Yeah,
They were all,
that's
but then their reaction was typically much better than I expected. It wasn't, "How could you do this to me?" Instead, it was just, "Oh yeah, no worries." I was kind of overwhelmed anyway and didn't really know if this was for me.
yeah. I want to say that often is the response because people usually are reasonable, right? Like in our minds, we imagine people to not be
Yeah,
reasonable, but usually people are, and we imagine them to not be reasonable because we've all had experiences with unreasonable people, and it's not fun. But yeah,
yeah,
usually people are reasonable, and often it's especially when it comes to like freelancers, it can be like, oh, I actually am glad that you let me off the hook because oftentimes people don't want to quit
yeah.
either. So on ultimately, it can turn out to be a better thing.
Yeah, it probably helps that I'm not a jerk when I fire them also. I don't tell them the situation, which is usually that maybe you would be good at this job, but we don't have enough editors with enough time to train you
Right.
well enough to do it quickly. So like I'm sorry that it's not going to work. Maybe some other time.
Yeah.
To answer your
Or
Sila,
Slaya,
I
I
don't know how to
think.
say your
I
name.
don't know.
I
I
don't know
say
how
or
to say it.
Slaya.
Your Slaya. Freelancers for many things, mostly writing Japanese, editing Japanese that's been written, recording Japanese, and then translating it, and then editing translations. So there's quite a few jobs there, but most of the ones we've been focusing on is writing and editing lately because if those are done correctly, the rest is pretty easy. The difficult part is getting sentences that we believe are publishable quality on NativShark, which you would think is easy, but is actually extraordinarily difficult. Um, because writers have a very hard time writing things the way people talk. And this is especially true when a couple things happen. They know that they're writing for an educator of the language, so they start to imagine sentences they should be making for students.
Mm.
Second, they think they need to have these big sentences. I should say. I don't know how else to say it. A great example of this is yojijukugo, which is 4 kanji compound words. Like iseki nicho is, two, like killing 2 birds with 1 stone. It's literally 1 stone, 2 birds, the kanji. So say we tell a writer, like, make a sentence with iseki nicho, and then they make a big long sentence like one you'd see in a textbook. But for a lot of yojijukugo, it's often just that one word is the sentence. Like if you do something that results in having 2 good benefits at once, you would just say "sekinicho." That's the example sentence.
Yeah.
But in addition to that, our writers have to write the context in which it's natural to say that. So they would have, and that's actually quite difficult. Like just now, I said, so you would do something with 2 good results. They have to come up with an actual situation, if that makes sense.
Right.
So Yojijukugo is just one example, but imagine that you're trying to do that for an entire language, and you're trying to get hundreds of sentences created per week consistently, and they have to have the formality markers be correct. So it is a lot of work for the freelancers to get correctly, and our instructions are not perfect, but they're getting much, much better. So
Well, and
typically,
as you're working on these
yeah,
instructions, you're also keeping in mind, um, how can this be a process that can be, like duplicated into another language as well. You're trying to make a process that
yeah,
isn't just unique to only Japanese. You're making a process that as soon as we're able, it just boom goes to next language.
yeah, and in theory, also to subjects that are not languages
Right.
could even work in these workflows that we're making. Um, and at the risk of going down a rabbit hole, I think having instructions in place that help a writer to understand how they should present context for what they are writing is the major challenge, but it's also the thing that will set our content apart from other content.
Yeah, for sure.
In our first episode, I talked about some book I read by Seth Godin. I don't just read business books, though. I also like to read fiction. I was an English major in college. Um, and I just read Gone with the Wind, for example, which was my mom's favorite book when she was 14. Uh, and reading it, I became more interested in the Civil War than I ever was in any history class in my teenage years. And why is that? Why did I become interested in the Civil War? And it's because suddenly I'm reading about characters who are living it, and I'm imagining specific situations for a human being that are relevant to the Civil War. In other words, I had context for the things that happened. So reading the book, I start to see words like carpetbagger, for example, or scalawag.
Hmm.
And I think, oh, I learned what a carpetbagger was in APUS history in my junior
Yeah.
year of high school. And it basically went in one ear and out the other because I don't care what a carpetbagger is. I don't whatever. Um, but now I'm reading the story and they are relevant to like this person's life that I know about. And so that in essence is the power of having context for something that's not a language. But in a language, it's what is the situation in which this person would say this thing to this person.
Hmm.
And when you know that, it's a lot easier to remember the thing that was said. And it's a lot easier to know when you should say it. So yeah, manipulating context and making it clear, I think, is going to be
Hmm.
one of the major differentiators of NativShark and from other education
Educators.
platforms.
That what you said about history. Now we've briefly talked about it before, but it got me really excited for the idea of teaching history through NativShark, and I think that Nico just froze on us. So now it's just me sitting here. All right, hold on 1 second while I check what may have happened. Pardon me. Whilst I update this, saying it was the drink. I agree. He's too excited. Okay, yeah, Nico actually really likes talking about history, and the idea of teaching through NativShark is really exciting to me, especially with Nico having his hand and at play and organizing how it will be taught. Yeah, it'd be really, really fun to do that. I feel like history is one of those things that is just really hard to find a a great way to learn it outside of like school. You know, it's like there's not a lot of just. It's like okay, there's documentaries to watch, but where's my like history course that I could just take to actually, like where's my world history? Where's my different country history? I don't know. I want it. So, a couple of the comments in chat. Even things that aren't languages, my mind immediately went to new language, C++. I don't foresee us specifically teaching like a programming language by itself, but wrapped inside of something like wrapped inside of how do you say a phase, not a phase, a path, right? Like an engineering path or a software engineering path. That's where we would teach those kinds of things. But in the case of like a programming language, it would be a part of a phase, for example. All right, let's see if Nico is still having difficulties. Yeah, I'm shark sad. Let's see. Has Nico.exe stopped working? Yeah, I guess so. Do I need to cancel the call and rejoin it? 1 second. Oh, wait.
Magically.
Hey, you're back.
I
Short
don't know what that was.
temporary technical difficulties. But we're back.
Yeah.
How's it going? How was your time
In the ether.
in the ether?
It was not enjoyable.
Yeah, I thought he had frozen that pose as well for a second. I was talking about like, did you hear me at all, or was it
A little bit,
okay?
but I thought you were frozen because I could still see me and you just froze. But then
Gotcha.
I realized it was me.
Then you realized
Apparently my light
always
speed
you.
connection that I pay money for is not very light speedy, is it?
Yeah. Yeah, I was just saying that it would be really cool to learn history on NativShark, especially if you're the one that has a little bit say in how it's done.
Yeah, how it's done, although I won't decide what we teach because I'm
Yeah,
not a historian.
right. Of course. I just meant like how it's done. I think that'd be really fun. So let's see. Maybe we should get into some of these questions.
Yeah, let's do that.
History could even tie nicely into languages. I mean, it could. You never know. Let's see. Let's go with a little quick one, a little easy one here. Okay. So there's this appeal, and you see it in a lot of different learning platforms. You see it in textbooks. You see students talk about it because it's what they're used to. And it's this idea of studying words in groups of categories. Like, I'm going to study all the colors. I'm weak on colors. I need to go grind a flashcard deck on colors. Or I'm weak on food terms. I got to go grind a whole section of my flashcards on food terms so that I learn food terms. Okay, I understand the appeal
Here-
of doing that, but can you explain to me why that might not be the best way to go about um, learning words?
Well, first of all, it's extraordinarily boring. I mean,
Yeah.
I cannot pay attention when it's like, let's learn, yeah, colors. Numbers is the one that just is the worst for me. You have a textbook, and then you go to like chapter 7, and there's a bunch of clocks. It's like,
There's
let's learn
always the
numbers.
clocks.
It's just like, oh no, maybe I don't. Maybe I don't want to learn a language. This is the worst.
Yeah.
Um, so no, that's the one reason. It's extraordinarily boring. The other is we were just talking a bunch about the value of context. I think that grouping words is a poor attempt at adding context to vocabulary.
Hmm.
And the thing here is that when you have them in groups, it sounds like a good idea. Why not learn all the colors together? Because colors,
Right.
I feel in my mind that like, oh, colors are related. I should learn them together. But that doesn't mean they're easier to learn together.
Hmm. I think
So,
also this idea of because things are supposedly similar, it'll make it, yeah, like you said, easier to remember. It's kind of a myth. Like our brains build mental links based off of our situations, right? Like we didn't necessarily evolve to see all the colors at once and know all the color names. Those are all stored in like this part of your brain. That these are color names specifically, right? Um, you'll learn different colors through different contexts of being exposed to those colors throughout your life or the media that you're being exposed to, etc. Sometimes if you're looking at a scene and you're like, oh, I wonder what that is, how would I say this one thing? Then it's fine to look that word up. You know, like if you're looking at like a painting or something, you're like, oh, I kind of do want to know some of these colors, but it's tied to that specific painting rather than just an arbitrary, here's a deck of colors to learn or here's a deck of numbers to learn. It's like if you need to use these numbers, okay, that's different because now you have a situation and a context to use them. Um, so that's a way that you can kind of, if you're really set on using categories, using the categories through the context that you're exposed to is a way to kind of do that. But ultimately, that doesn't even matter. You can kind of just go about based on what gets exposed to you in like spoken or written text over a period of time. So, yeah. All right. Do you have anything else you want to
yeah,
say
and
on that,
then
or
well, also like I'm not particularly against learning colors at a similar time or in a single lesson, but if you were going to, yeah, they each need to have a
right?
specific context that is
Yep.
not related to the fact that it's sitting next to the other color.
Yes.
Just just because you learned the word for dog doesn't mean that it's going to be easier to learn the word for cat right after it.
Right.
And
Unless
the
the
word
context is
dog
dogs and cats fighting, in which case,
or whatever, yeah.
you know,
And and then there's this thing, well, now we're teaching a lesson on animals, so I guess we should add other ones. You can't just have dog and cat, and you start adding elephant and goldfish and leopard, and now suddenly we're getting into, well, those words aren't as useful as dog and cat because they're not as common,
yeah.
and so you also start to get this like skewed thing happening.
Mm.
Um, yeah, you mentioned something about our brains not grouping those things together, and I'm really fascinated in this idea of how our brains work. And a good example I heard the other day was, can you think of a word with 5 vowels in a row? There is such a word in the English language.
Yeah, I can't think of it. 5 vowels in a row.
Yeah.
Can think of like three.
Yeah, I got close when I heard it, and
Oh
I
wait, beautiful.
like E
E
A
A
U.
E-A-U-I, right? No. Oh,
No,
there's a
there's a
T.
T in
Okay,
there.
there's only three.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
I thought of Q, like standing in a queue, because it's Queau, or so I can't spell. That was four
Q-U
though. But
Q-U-E
queuing, Yeah,
Queuing.
queuing, like standing in a queue, like lining up, is has 5 vowels in a row. So now you think about, what did your brain do when you were trying to guess
Hmm.
a word? Did you start at A and think, okay, let's go through the words that start with A and how? And obviously not.
Hmm.
Something weird is happening in your brain where it's grabbing all these different words, and you don't
Hmm.
really know how it's working. Like,
Right.
but you can sort of feel it, that your brain is doing
Yeah.
something.
Right. Like immediately my mind was looking at, it was filtering out all the words that I knew that didn't have more than or less than three or whatever. Like I was like, I wasn't thinking of ones that have two because like cook has two, so that didn't come to mind. But like beautiful did, and I was confused for a second because there's that I in there as well, so it was
Mhm.
almost five, and it has a U, but like my brain just like short circuited the T for a second and like put those together. So it even made a mistake while trying to filter for words. So it's like they knew there was the run on of three, and then it also knew that there was two more vowels in there, but then it forgot that there was consonants. So that was like, oh, that's the word. Um, and then another one that came to mind was the word opportunity, even though there's not at any point a bunch of vowels put together, but it felt like it for a second because the O, P, P, for some reason, the double P for a second felt like it could be a vowel in my mind, even though I know that it's not. That was weird.
Yeah. So playing a game
Yeah.
like that, I think you'll notice that some wheels are turning in your brain and you're trying to come up with something that fits the prompt. I think that kind of exercise is good when trying to get students to produce something. We talked a lot in the last episode about the potential problems with going from English to Japanese on flashcards, because you're just trying to remember what was the English that went to this flashcard, and it's like if I asked you, what did you eat for breakfast 2 days ago? That's a much different thing happens in your brain than if I asked you, what's a word with 5 vowels in a row?
Hmm.
Because you just go back. You just go, well, yesterday I had this for breakfast, day before, and the day before. And it's not
Yeah.
really the wild, exciting activity that happens when you're trying to come up with something that you've never had to come up with before. And I think being able to come up with something you've never come up with before is what it feels like when you're trying to make a sentence in a foreign language that you've never made before.
Hmm. Yeah.
And you probably didn't see it in a dictionary or on NativShark even, or in a textbook, because you live in a different context than everybody else on the planet. So we don't have them yet on NativShark, but we've actually been working a lot on these types of activities where it's you are prompted with something that would get you thinking about what would you say in that situation. And you have to do this. You have to create something that you've never created before. And then we show you an option after, like
Right.
if I ask you, you are in line at the grocery store and they're talking to you and you're pretty sure they're asking you if you have a point card. What do you say back to them? You
Yeah.
know, and
Right.
there's a few things you could say. Um, and we would give you a particular answer that you could say after you've had time to think about it, after you've had time to work on making those neural connections
Right.
that involve
Right.
producing
That's
a
the
new sentence.
that's the key thing with like language acquisition and the way that our brain works. As far as modern research suggests, as of this point, it's the act of um, thinking about what your answer would be that creates the learning experience. That creates the connections in the neurons, rather than doing something like a multiple choice, wherein
Uh,
you see four or more potential options and you are supposed to choose one that you think is the answer. That um what does that works on deductive reasoning, I think is what it is, right? I think it's deductive, but it's not at all related to being able to speak or use a language in any way. It tests a completely different part of your brain, and that's we've been asked before, why not put multiple choice into NativShark, and that's one of the big reasons. Is it's not conducive to language acquisition, so it wouldn't actually help with the mission of what NativShark's supposed to do for you. It might feel good because you're like, oh, I passed a test and I got a mark, But again, it's one of those deceitful things that seems like a good idea, but isn't. That's not to say that there's literally no place in a platform to have those kinds of questions. Um, there might be. It's just not what we would use for language acquisition in a core experience, like helping you learn, sort of a thing. Um, so yeah,
Yeah, it reminds me of also all these various apps I've used over the years. They have not just multiple choice, but this thing where you drag stuff to match it. Like you drag this
yeah,
down. And I cannot. I have to delete the app when they do that to me because now, in addition to the all the stuff that Caleb just said about multiple choice and how it's not really a productive use of my time, now the interface is also wasting my time by making me drag stuff just to tell it stuff that I know in
mm,
a slow fashion. So now I'm literally spending time getting nothing.
yep,
And yeah, that's like instant delete for me when I use an app if it makes me drag and drop to multiple choice answers.
right. Because it's
Um,
just a slow. It's like yeah, it's intentionally slowing down the experience of acquiring the language, kind of arbitrarily, for the sake of maybe a gimmick, if I may say so. I don't know. That's pretty controversial, but yeah, it feels
and
a little bit
maybe
gimmicky.
maybe when we have a native mobile app in the future, we will have activities that have a
Right,
dragging thing.
for
Caleb
sure.
said it would not be a core activity
That's a
because
distinction we want to make here.
we are obsessed with protecting your time in core activities
Yep.
and making sure that you get the new information that you need, you think about the things you need to think about, and you make progress towards the higher level in the subject that you're studying. And if you want to go play, you know, matching games or something after that, then
Yeah.
yeah, why not? Go
I,
for it.
I saw a student talking about conjugation. They wanted like a conjugation. They want to know if there was like a conjugation thing on the internet where they could just like essentially click buttons kind of mindlessly to like pair up conjugations, basically like a drag and drop or like a matching game sort of thing, rather than act. Like they're like, yeah, I don't want to do something hard effort like thinking and typing. I just want to kind of like do something for fun. Yeah, and like there's a place for that. Like in your downtime, like there's no like if you enjoy it and it's kind of related to the language, like sure. Now that's not going to be the thing that propels you forward in your um your ability to use the language. It's not going to give you leaps and bounds, but it is exposure and it's kind of fun. So there's definitely a place for that. I don't want to say that there's not, because there is. Um, but in the case of NativShark, we're hard focused on protecting your time and building core materials out first before we, kind of look at some of the more um, fun kind of things that you could do. Not that core materials aren't fun, it's just that you know what I mean. So, all right, let's get
Maybe
on.
we could just some of the less focused stuff that feels fun.
Sure, there we go. Less focus that feels fun, rather than the more focus that is also fun. All right, let's see. On the topic of like the way that our brains kind of like look for things when you try to think of a five character or five vowel word, Jacob said it's like an intelligent binary search inside of a tree or something like that. Um, and I kind of agree. Also, I was thinking like it's kind of like a what is it? Like a merge sort, wherein that both like you're given two arrays or something, but both sides are sorted already. So you can just kind of like make some assumptions, and then your brain kind of like goes down to sorting it in like the middle path at a much faster rate. It is something like that. Like someday we'll understand, how our brains work at a lot deeper level. And we'll actually know what is it doing. But yeah, it does feel like that. Definitely more of that sort of a search than a BOGO sort or BOGO search. That would be like going A B C. All right. Anyway, let's see. Okay, let's go to this one from Josh. I'd love to hear more about life in Japan, or even what a Japanese house is like. I always like how the kitchens seem to have a special fish grill.
They do.
What's um what's life in Japan like for you, Nicholas?
Life in Japan is convenient and affordable is what I would call it. Are the two things I would say. Yeah, I can't give a house tour because the baby's asleep. I can show you my office, but it's just a room with a closet. Um,
Oh, Tokyo Hunter, thanks for following. Welcome. Um, House tour, Native Wowza. I think that um, we can give you we could give you a house tour of my house, but not today. Today the camera is locked onto a tripod behind my monitor, and I can't easily pick it up and carry it around.
you need to
However,
straighten like your phone or something.
yeah, like on a stream, maybe like a day that Chie is streaming, she could do a bit of a house tour. She does have a video coming out on the NativShark channel about Instagram live stream. Hey, that could work. Anyway, Chie does have a video coming out. Um, that's cooking. It's a cooking video, and you'll get to see our kitchen. Hey, how about that? That's a fun video that she's been working
On this,
on.
on this topic of life in Japan, so I don't know how many people know this, but since I move a lot, or I have at least in the last decade, um, so I've lived in a number of countries, not a ton. I've lived in Ray and I have been in, Japan, Thailand, Vietnam, the US, and several of those multiple times over the last few years. And I, when I first moved out of Japan after I'd been here a couple of years, I did get what they call, reverse culture shock, which is getting annoyed at things. It's culture shock, but back to like your home country. So I went back to the U.S. and like some things would bug me that because it wasn't like that in Japan. And now I've been trying to think of a cool word for it, but I think I've reached this state where I just have infinite cultural longing because every country now has things that I love and is missing things that I love in other countries.
Yeah.
So I do love living in Japan and it is convenient and affordable. Some stuff that I love, for example, is the shower rooms, which is just if you have like a nicer house, it's pretty great. Like there's a heater for the shower room, and like there's the shower, and then the bathtub is right next to it. So if I'm gonna take a shower and it's freezing, I can turn the heater on 10 minutes beforehand. When I go in the shower, it's nice and it's warm in there already, and
Yeah.
there's a lot of benefits. And like there's also like a touch panel outside the bathroom, and I could actually, if I wanted to take a bath, I could press the bath button, and in 20 minutes the bath will be
Fills up the
filled.
bath. And it moderates the temperature of the bath, like while you're in it. Keeps it at
Yeah,
like the level. Oh, it's so nice.
and the seats are heated, and they all have those fancy washlets and things. So like bath and bathrooms are pretty awesome in Japan. I don't like Japanese kitchens at all. Um, I miss having a garbage disposal in the US, and I miss having a dishwasher.
Yeah.
And I miss having a dryer for my clothes that was really powerful.
Mm,
So these are things that I don't really like about living in Japan, but you just get used to them after a while.
yeah.
It kind of blows my mind sometimes that I'll be walking and I'll see a house that looks like it's got to be worth at least $1 million plus here in Tokyo, and they obviously just built it and spent tons of money on it. And then I see this woman who's like in her 50s or 60s hanging up all these clothes outside, and it's you have $1 million to build your house and you still don't have a clothes dryer. It's just blows my mind.
It's the thing in Japan. Everyone just it's used to it, and I've talked to some people, and they honestly just think it's the best way to dry your clothes. They're like, yeah, dryers don't work. They're not good, even though you can get
I
good.
lived in like, the US and had a dryer that was
No,
like actually
I have
amazing.
no. Okay, listen. I have some friends that I lived in the United States with who were from Japan, and they didn't like dryers in the United States. And we had a nice dryer. He was my roommate. We had a nice dryer, and he still preferred. He's like, no, it doesn't. It doesn't. It's not the same. It doesn't get all the bacteria. You gotta have the sun cleanse your clothes. That's what his belief was.
That's, yeah, that's
So
different.
I don't know. He still dried his clothes. Like he would rarely use the dryer unless it was the winter and it was frozen outside. Otherwise, he would dry his clothes, air dry his clothes with like a heater in his room, or he would put them outside. So maybe it's just a thing. Um,
Everyone's hating on dryers
a
now.
lot of
I
people
can't
don't
believe.
like dryers. It's not just Japan. There are other countries that do that as well.
Yeah, my aunt in New Zealand has a nice big clothes dryer, and she still hangs up her clothes outside every day.
So
So
maybe that's a Nico gripe more
I
than a.
love the convenient option though, because I don't like doing things that like that at all. I like spending time on things that feel like a waste of my time, and one of
Yeah,
them is hanging clothes and
I
folding.
understand. I understand. Um, I can see the benefits to both. We actually just recently bought a really nice washing machine and dryer um, combo that actually does work really well. It is a good dryer, but it also costs a lot. They're not cheap to get them. Um, let's
My
see.
dryers, yeah,
I regarding Japanese kitchens, I I kind of don't like most kitchens, but in some houses there are spectacular kitchens that I love, and they're very nice sized. I've seen them. I've been in like one or two. So it does exist. It's just I would say yeah. Most like the average like mansion or apato. Obviously, an apato is not gonna have it's gonna have the tiniest kitchen you've ever seen in your life. It's usually not like the biggest priority in Japan to have a large kitchen. So that can be a bit of a bummer. But they do exist in some of the nicer houses, and when they do exist, they are really nice.
yeah. Josh mentioned that Japanese bathrooms have fancy vents and aircon units to air dry your clothes. Yeah, like my shower room has.
Yeah, they do.
Turn the setting on to dry, and you can hang up your clothes in the bathroom to dry them, and it works okay. They dry better outside actually, but then if it's raining or something, you have to put them inside, or if it's nighttime, I guess. Not everything gets dried perfectly. Just the ones under the vent get dried well, and the rest kind of don't. So you have to go in there and switch them around. It's just more work that I don't like doing.
Yeah, the biggest thing here that we're getting is that Nico doesn't like the extra time that it takes. Again, like then you'll see this more as our podcast goes on. Nico is almost a freak about where his time is going. It's so precious to him. I think he takes that term with like he appreciates it. He's like, yes, that's me. So if things can save time, or he likes that. Um, so for some people, they actually enjoy the um, the slow pace of, oh, I gotta go change my laundry a couple times per day. But if you're like Nico, not gonna be that way.
So a few years ago, when we were living in Chiang Mai in Thailand, um, I when we would go grocery shopping, like a normal person goes grocery shopping every now and then, and I felt like, oh, we spend all this time at the grocery store doing shopping for groceries. So I had this great idea that I would just listen to Shadow Loops while I'm at the grocery store
Mm.
with Ray. So I'd be there listening to my Shadow Loops, and after a while, Ray just got so annoyed at me because she would ask me something about food that we're gonna buy, and I wouldn't hear her because I was just listening to Shadow Loops.
You're
We were looking.
terrible.
Can you stop doing that every time we're at the store? Because I'm always trying to ask you about what we're gonna
Oh
get to
my
eat.
word.
And I was like, all right, fine. So
Sometimes you
I
just
stopped.
gotta do those things. Let's see. What else about life in Japan? In general, I really enjoy it. I like living in Japan a lot. I've been here for about 2 years now, so Nico's lived here way longer than me. But yeah, I don't know. Before moving here, you hear a lot of things from other people who like when you say you're moving to Japan, the people are like, oh, I visited there and blah blah blah, or I lived there and I did or didn't like it. But for me, I kind of just adapt wherever I am and learn to appreciate. I generally like to be on the positive side of things for the most part. So if there are negative things, I don't think about them that much because they don't think I don't know, it doesn't really bother me. So for me, it's really only been good experiences, and I like it a lot. Um, Especially like Nika was saying, the convenience of things. Um, I don't know. There's just this general vibe of I don't know, orderliness. Like for the most part. Things are very orderly. Things are consistent. And in the ways that things are inconsistent, they're consistently inconsistent. Meaning you can expect, like when things aren't consistent, you can expect what it's going to be. Like, okay, that's just going to be this way. Like something might take extra paper, for example, one day and not another day if you're going to go fill out forms or something. But you kind of just know like that's just the way it's going to be. So you can kind of expect it's going to be a bit more of a hassle.
Yeah, it's consistently a hassle to do anything involving bureaucracy in
Yeah,
Japan.
yeah, but
But moving around, that's true of many, many
you're
countries,
right.
and it's true of, for example, the U.S. Depending on what you're doing.
Yeah,
Um, like I had to open a bank account at the post. They have bank accounts at the post office in Japan, by the way. It's also a bank, post
another
office.
convenience thing. It's quite nice.
So I joined a gym, and to pay your monthly fee, you have to have one of these banks so they can take the money out every month. And I just didn't, I just didn't set it up for the first couple months, and then finally, they like very awkwardly told me like to please actually set up your bank account because I just paid when they asked me. So I went yesterday and set up my bank account, and I was surprised that this being Japan, I was able to fill out the application form online on my computer and then print it and just sign and stamp it and then bring it in. 'Cause
Mm,
normally you go in there and
yeah.
like fill out all these forms, and now I have to write my address in Japanese. Like the one thing you got to write in Japanese always is your address. Um, and I write really slowly in Japanese, so it take forever. So I was really happy about that. So then I go in there, and of course, there's one more form they pull out, and she's like, "Please write your name and address here." And she puts it next to this other form that I've given her with my name and address on it.
Mm,
I'm looking at this nice lady at the post office and looking down at this form that she's asking me to fill out, and the form next to it that has all the information that she wants me to put on this form. Every single piece of information is already there in triplicate. And I thought, well, this is actually not as bad as I was expecting when I came. And so I filled out my address very slowly in Japanese, and then it was done. It actually wasn't that bad.
yeah, yeah.
Going back to
I've had that
it is
experience in the United States as well. So like again, it does happen everywhere. You know.
any place that has me fill out a form on paper, which is true in the US as well, just everywhere in the world, just seems ridiculous to me. It increases the likelihood of error when they put it into their system.
Yep.
Someone has to copy
I
it, which
don't.
wastes the employee's time.
You know, this is 2020. We're
Yeah,
almost 2021. Can we stop using paper for everything, please?
yeah, it's just
Onegaishimasu.
for fun things like stationery and
Exactly. Paper for decoration only. We should stop doing business on paper.
yeah. On
Oof.
the issue of convenience and not having to drive, public transit is amazing. Not just public transit, but in Japan is extraordinarily walkable and
Yeah. Yeah.
bike
It's amazing.
rideable.
Oh, another
Um,
thing, the food scene, spectacular.
yeah.
It's
So,
amazing.
for example, before this podcast, I wanted to ride my bike to the kombini and get like a coffee and a snack, but I was going to be late if I did that. So I just walked across the street and bought a canned coffee at a vending machine, which a vending machine just in front of some dude's house, like,
Yeah.
which
Yep.
is another nice thing about Japan.
Right.
Cold canned coffees, I very much enjoy.
Yeah, it's really nice. On
Not
the
just the food scene, but the fact that the food scene is affordable. You go to the like in San Diego where I'm from, if you want to eat lunch, you basically are gonna have a soup, I mean a salad or a sandwich or Mexican food. And that's pretty much all you can have for lunch. It's like you're gonna have a sandwich or a salad. And I'm frozen. Am I not
No,
frozen?
you're
You
good.
froze
You're
frozen.
good. Okay. Whew.
Whereas in Japan, there's a whole bunch of stuff you can have for lunch, and it's pretty affordable. Like often under $10 for a single person.
Yeah. Seriously.
So
Um, we went to Kaiten Sushi, which is like conveyor belt sushi, the other day, Chie and I, and like we ate like what felt like a lot for us, and it was like equivalent to 14 USD for both of us. It's like what? It's crazy.
the other day, I I brought bento to Ty and Jacob because they're staying right down the street from me while they quarantine. I brought them some bento from this famous chicken bento place near where I live. And what I didn't tell them actually is that one of those bento costs like $5 to $6, which it's like a whole
It's
lunch
a
and it's
whole lunch. Yeah,
tasty. The one downside is they only take cash, which is also often true in
that
Japan.
does happen. It's the worst. Like you forget that sometimes because most. Okay, I feel like most places I go to do take
I
they
tell you.
they do take cash, but I walk in.
I mean,
What's that? Oh yeah,
they do
most
take
places I
card.
go to, I feel like do take card or they take IC card. So it's like, okay, we're good. But then I occasionally walk into a place and don't check, and then it's like I'm at the thing, and then they're like, "Oh, it's cash only," and I'm like, can I run to the convenience store real quick?" I've had to do that like once or twice because I didn't have any cash. I'd be like, "Be right back," um, you know. But which interesting enough, like they'll be like, "Yeah, sure, go ahead." And they don't care, and I come back and they pay for it. Then no one's like, "No, you can't do that." I'm in this awkward situation where I can't pay for it, and also they won't let me leave because they're worried that I'm not going to come back. But I actually never thought about that.
Yeah.
I feel like in another country they might not be so happy to have you just leave, not paying. Yeah,
Yeah.
how about that? Just kind of just happened.
Joshua, no one in Tokyo ever seems to need to lock their bikes. Is that true? My bike has a lock that just locks the wheels. Um,
Hmm.
there's a key to unlock the wheels,
I,
but
I
it doesn't. There's not like a big bike lock. I don't have that.
I find most people have the little lock on the wheels. I think it's like
Yeah,
almost hard.
I think.
Yeah, hard to find someone who doesn't. Hmm. But it is true in general that you know, like theft is very small. Like you can leave expensive things out. I mean, I'm not telling you to do that. Don't do it, but you can, and it's probably going to be fine. You know, people generally mind their own business in Japan, which depending on who you are, you might not like that. But for me, that's one of my favorite parts about living in Japan is no one really bothers me, and no one really bothers anyone else either.
You can be as antisocial as you want.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. You got me. Um, yeah,
Yeah,
it's
that is.
nice. To me, I love it. You just kind of go and do your thing, and everyone else kind of doing their thing, and yeah, it's great. Um, yeah, I mean, I could probably talk about living in Japan all day, so maybe we go to a next.
Switch it to a life in Japan podcast.
Yeah, I mean, we could. Nico, your mic is cutting out just a little bit. I think maybe if you want to bring it a bit closer or something. I'm not sure. I'm having a little bit of trouble hearing you occasionally. All right.
I think my internet is messed up or something because every now and then you freeze for a millisecond.
Okay. Well, I can hear you better now that you moved it a bit closer. I'm gonna check through some of these comments we've had while we've been talking about this. Um, and
Manchester, that sounds intense.
in
Axel
Manchester, people
Grander.
even come with axe grinders cut your butt. Wow, that's no fun. Don't do that.
Yeah, I know
Um,
in the US, like if you just put a lock on your wheels, they'll just take your wheel off and take the rest of the bike.
yep, I had a friend that happened to. Unlucky. Ty says that the obentos were delicious.
They're
Um,
good.
Ursula says you guys make me want to head over there. You should come visit.
Yeah.
Hmm. All
I
right.
want to have like a Shark event where people can come and we all
Yeah, well,
hang out in Japan
like an IRL
once
meetup.
wild quarantine stuff is done.
Yeah, once we can get through this time.
And maybe
Okay.
have a party at like Yoyogi Koen or something. Just go to the park and we'll all just hang out on the grass and eat bento and tea and beer.
Sounds like a good time. Um, okay, here's another question. From Ikrana. I'm not entirely sure how to say her name. Um, how is founding a company with partners and friends? How do you separate work and free time now? On the note of us also being friends and not just straight up business partner. I think that's where that question was coming from. One from the Discord. Um, I don't know. I think it's great.
Yeah.
It's nice to get along. We live in like separate cities right now, so we don't really like hang out outside of work at all. When we were in Tokyo, we would every couple weekends we would um, meet up for like dinner or something. Sometimes we'd go, take a walk and talk about work stuff or just whatever, just for fun. We didn't do it as much as we wanted to, because we were so busy. But yeah, I don't know. I think it's between like us hanging out, there's not much of a difficulty with separating work and free time. But in our each individual personal lives, we do have trouble separating work from free time. Um, just because we both like to work a lot because we really want to see this thing through, which we're both working on as well and trying to get a better sort of work-life balance happening. But okay, on the question of how is founding a company with partners and friends, because obviously like you found Uday is a co-founder, Chie is a co-founder, so we're like founding couples. What are some of your thoughts on that, Nico?
I've heard some horror stories about about having a company with your partner, and it doesn't really. We haven't. Ray and I don't have problems with this. The one problem we used to have sometimes was when we wrote daily lessons and we sent them out as emails. So I would write the lesson usually in the morning at like 5 in the morning. I would get up and write a lesson first thing. Sometimes it took an hour, sometimes it took 3 hours.
Hmm.
And then at some point during the day, they would check it because she checked everything and edited it. And if I had done a very good job, there would be nothing I had to change based on her feedback.
Hmm.
Usually there was something that I had to change based on her feedback of the lesson I wrote. And sometimes it was a major change. Like you need to rewrite this whole lesson.
Hmm.
And I use so we're sitting there and it's 6:30 p.m. or something. And she's like, yeah, you gotta rewrite this lesson. And it was a daily lesson. So people are gonna get it. They're gonna get an email like 12 hours from now. And I would groan miserably, like, oh. And then, you know, your partner doesn't like being groaned at when they tell you
Yeah.
something that's pleasant. So
Hmm.
after a while, she's like, I don't even like checking these because I know that you're gonna sound all upset when I tell you have to go rewrite it or something. So then I made a conscious effort to not complain or act upset when she told me I had to go rewrite a lesson at 7:30 p.m. or something.
Hmm.
I would say, "Oh, bummer, I'll go do it." And then on the inside, I was groaning secretly.
Right. Yeah.
So
Um.
stuff like that, and you just deal with it as it comes. But for the most part, we haven't really had any problems. But I think part of that is just that we got lucky with the people that we created our lives with.
Yeah. Same thing with um Chie and I. There was a time where she was like back in the Nihongo Shark days, again, that's where it was like this. She was like, "Oh, I would never like I don't want ever want to work for you for Caleb." Um and I can understand why because back then in Nihongo Shark, things were way less organized than they are in Native Shark, and Chie really likes organization and things to be timely, and she helps. I mean, that presence that she brings to the leadership team is actually really beneficial for Native Shark. But in the Nihongo Shark days, things were a lot more. Um, what's that phrase? I don't know how to say it. It's a French phrase that just came to laissez-faire or something like that. I don't know. Is that a word? You know what I'm trying to
Yeah,
say?
like hands off government. I don't know if
Yeah.
it applies to things not government, maybe.
I don't know what I'm saying. Okay, anyway. Um, yeah, so then back then, she would do some stuff for us. Like she would make some art for us, but it was kind of the same similar thing where it would be like well, I don't, you guys don't give me enough feedback, or don't give me good enough direction on what we want. So it's kind of a pain to work for you guys. But then we founded NativShark, changed all that, and like she's in charge of the visual look of the art and stuff like that. So instead, it's a collaborative process between her and I and the rest of the team, wherein she's leading it, and that works a lot better. So ultimately, um, when working with partners, I think it can be fantastic. I honestly think it can be one of the best experiences that you can have, because like if you get really lucky, like Nico and I did with who you choose to partner your life with, and you want to spend a lot of time with that person, and they're like a fantastic, person themselves, and they have their own um, goals and ambitions and stuff, and those things can come alongside what you're doing. Like it's a lot of fun. It's really rewarding. I want to say it's almost more rewarding because you're doing it together, and that's great. Um, so in order to make it work, though, you do have to have really good communication with your partner, and you have to be obviously be willing to be wrong a lot. Both ways. That has to be. You have to have that clear communication channel. You have to be honest all the time, at like a heightened level, almost to keep things. Do you know what I mean? Do you know what I'm talking about, Nico? Does that make sense to you? Like just being able to communicate well is what makes it smooth.
Yeah, I think so. And just being able to be honest, even
Yeah.
if being honest is saying something that your partner doesn't want to hear. Like, if I was going to tell Ray that some sentences that she wrote or edited I don't think are publishable, then she's not going to freak
Mm,
out or something.
right.
She's used to that.
Or when I have to say like that doesn't fit, like the art piece or the direction doesn't fit at all with where I think we would want to go with NativShark. Like, yeah, Chia doesn't freak out about it. She's like, oh, okay, yeah, we talk it through. We're like, this is why, and she'll be like, oh yeah, that makes sense. Okay, adjust. You gotta have that ability to separate the work from the person. Like the work can sometimes be not great, but it doesn't mean that the person isn't great. Do you know? Um,
Yeah.
Kind of the same in like any like work relationship, really. You know, not too much different. And then our partnership, I don't know, it's good.
Yeah.
We've been in business together for 5 years now, so that's something. Like we've made it work. We've been through a lot.
Yeah, our personalities mesh kind of well, which I think just happened by chance.
Hmm. It
I
did.
don't think that like I'm a particularly easy person to work with because I don't like following rules or having schedules or attending meetings or doing things that people do when they have a business. And then
Yeah.
other business partners probably would have lost it by now by dealing with it. But yeah, I don't know. It works out.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I don't know. It's good. I enjoy it. I'm looking forward to continuing doing Native Shark, and maybe we'll start another thing sometime too. It's been work.
Someday.
Yeah, it's always the plan. Let's see. We got this question from Tokyo Hunter in chat just now that would be kind of fun to answer. So one sec while I copy and paste this into the stream. Somehow I got to figure out if like a moderator can do this while we're talking. Anyway,
Yep.
any plans to attend any language expos to promote NativShark? There's an annual one in London called the Language Show. This year in November, it was via Zoom for the first time due to the lockdown, so it was open to a worldwide audience. I suspect they'll do Zoom presentations again in the future. Yes, we just have been talking about how we want to do this more. We're at a place with NativShark where we feel like, yeah, it would be good for us to get out there more and yeah, talk about stuff, have some presentations. I want Nico to do the talking when it comes to presentations because when it's about language, like I don't know, I feel like he has the most interesting things to say about it. Like I could talk about like the system and development and designing and building like a language like technology platform, but when it comes to um, you know, the process of creating content, like I feel like that's Nico's forte.
Yeah. Yeah, we've talked about how we should probably be more involved in these types of things like conferences and whatnot. Um, so yeah, we will do it. I want to get more of our content department running better without me doing so much because I'm not going to go attend a language conference if it's going to slow down content production for our
Right.
current students because that's more important to me. Because the question I always end up asking myself is, is this bringing value to people trying to learn what they're trying to learn through NativShark? And yeah, it is if it's going to bring in new students, like attending an expo or something like that. But at the moment, I'm more focused on the students who have taken a shot on us and put their faith in our system
Right.
and making sure we have all the content ready so that they can achieve the goals they want to achieve. But yeah, once that stuff is running better without me sort of in every single piece of it, then we'll probably do more things like that. Or I mean, I will probably do more things like that. This is a challenge for me personally because I, you might not know this about me, probably not, but like I don't have a calendar, for example. I don't talk on the phone with people. Caleb mentioned earlier that I'm sort of insane about managing my time. And another way that I like to think about it is that I'm insane about managing my attention.
Yeah.
Um, so I don't just not talk on the phone. My phone doesn't ring. I don't get notifications of any kind from any app. Um, I don't have a calendar because I have just routines and like we do meet for Native Shark, but it's the same time each week, a couple of times for certain things. And I've set up my life in such a way that I can produce the maximum amount possible
Yeah.
without distractions. And I have yet to really figure out how I would fit in something like this without sort of breaking or weakening that system that I have. So it'll be a work in progress for a while.
Yeah.
But yeah,
We'll figure it out though, I'm sure. Um, but yeah, on that note of language expos and conferences, if any of you um, are aware of some that you think would be a good fit for us, definitely like send us a message, email us, tweet us, say hi in the Discord. Like, we don't know all of the conferences that exist. Like, I didn't know this one existed in London. So yeah, definitely reach out. Let us know. That'd be cool. Um, so we got time for a bit more. Um,
we could just create our own conference.
we should at some point. That'd be fun. But that's a whole nother challenge.
I was
Organizing a
reading
conference.
some people start conferences as a way to make money, like quickly.
Interesting. Um,
I was thinking a conference just because we could teach a lot of stuff and meet cool people, but other people are doing it to make lots of money, apparently.
yeah. Um, this question from Discord. What are the benefits and challenges of having all your staff in Japan now? Better teamwork versus around the clock support, etc. Um, the benefits are
Any of the downsides at the moment,
I
but
see no downsides. There's no comparison. Everyone being at the same time zone is amazing. Much better. You know, when we feel the need to have round the clock customer support again, we have avenues to make that available. We still do have we still are a U.S. company and a Japanese company. So when the time comes, it's not going to be too difficult for us to spin out an operation in Bellevue again that has people who do support on different time zones, like the opposite time zone from Japan. So it's not really an issue at the moment. But when it is, again, that still won't be that big of a challenge because we have kind of the stuff set up to make that happen. So at the moment, yeah, I think it's fantastic. Being able to, yeah, teamwork. At the same time, much better, much more efficient. Yeah. I don't even know if there's any challenges, honestly. I think it's all better. Like, this is one of those things where I literally think it's just better.
Yeah, probably. Maybe if we were a somewhat bigger company, there would be a benefit to having certain types of teams in a
Mm,
different time zone so that
yeah.
things are getting around the clock, so to speak. I know that for content, like there is a point at which it becomes quite helpful to have content being created 24 hours per day. But while we're training all of these people, it's kind of helpful that they're not all in different time zones.
Yep.
Actually, a couple of them are, but most of us are actually in Japan because right now we're working with lots of Japanese writers and translators, and they are usually in Japan. Oh no, one of our freelancers is in Canada, but yeah, eventually, sure, there would be benefits.
Yeah. But but at the moment, it's good. Yeah, it's nice to have it. I do, yeah, I do see in the future though it being more beneficial, and there we'll face some challenges with everyone in Japan, and that's the point when we'll work on scaling out again in different time
I think
zones.
chat support is what's gonna be the thing that needs different time zones getting supported as the company grows because it's pretty nice if you can just click the chat box and get a response in 10 seconds from a human being rather than waiting for 12 hours for an email.
Right. All right. There's another question. Let me paste this one in here. Um, let's see. There we go. That's a really long lad. That one's not gonna fit actually. Um, all right. So with the amount of candy tickets and questions or requests that we get from people on Discord and etc., um, as well as the number of things that are already on the development roadmap, how do we prioritize what is currently in active development? And I can immediately answer part of that question pretty quickly. Um, and we look at the upvotes on both bugs and feature requests on Canny. So if there's a certain feature request that you would particularly like to see, upvote it. And if there's a bug that's happening to you, upvote it. Because if there's a bug that we see only once and it's not like mission critical anyway, yeah, we're not going to prioritize that one. So we're going to need, we need to see people upvoting them a lot to see, okay, yeah, this is a consistent problem. Um, Also, we do, we always read the platform talk channel in Discord so we can see what the general sentiment is. Um, and we get emails as well. So between upvoting on Canny of bug reports and feature requests, and then um, the feedback in Discord and um, email, we sort of kind of get what the general sentiment is. And then we go in that direction. Now, just because something is the most upvoted thing does not mean that it's going to be the thing that we are going to work on right now, but it lets us know that that's a direction that we should be heading, essentially. So, yeah.
There's two things that influence what gets done next. And one of them is all the stuff that Caleb just said that we listen to feedback in Discord, email, and Canny. And we see volumes of it and we also judge what we think would be the most important. That's half of it. The other half
Yep.
is we prioritize the things that lead to NativShark being what we want it to be because
Yeah.
we have a vision of what the product should be. And to the majority of users, I don't think they know what that is
Yep.
because how would they? Because we haven't built it yet. So that is half of what influences what we're doing next. And we're not going to get canny reports on something that doesn't exist yet. So
Exactly.
we have to prioritize those things as well.
Which is why you'll sometimes see me like once a month or so. I'll come into Canny and I will consolidate all these various different feature requests into like one master thread. because I can see that people are talking about different things, and then internally we have an idea of how we would answer that people don't. Well, they basically can't know because they don't have like the full picture of where we're headed with everything. So I'll consolidate everything into like a single like sort of master thread that sort of lumps things together in a, oh, this is the direction that we're going, because like Nico said, um, the real guiding compass of what we choose to work on is turning the product into what we want it to be, or what we know it can be and should be. So yeah, that's the, yeah, making it like feel the way it should, look the way it should, do what it should do, in a iterative manner. That's where our focus goes. But yeah, it's great to get as much feedback as we do. We get a lot of feedback, actually. It's really awesome. It's really nice to see people so engaged and passionate about what we're making.
Indeed.
Um, oh, this is kind of related, and it's from Kayadu in Discord. It says, not sure if you've talked about this yet, but how do you guys manage scope creep and stay true to your core objectives? Kind of the same answer.
Yeah.
I, I'll say that we struggled a lot with this scope creep um, earlier on in the year.
Yeah.
It was a big challenge for us to kind of wrap our minds around how to develop what we wanted to make, and that's one of the reasons, why things took a bit longer than we wanted to. Because yeah, when the project this size, I can't say that, scope creep is real. It is on any project, but on the one the size of NativShark, yeah, it's a real thing. You got to fight against it. The ways that we manage it are kind of similar to the other answer with how do we decide what we're working on next. We've gotten pretty good at this point at really finally knowing like this is something we should work on now, versus this we can work on later, and not letting a sprint get too wibbly wobbly, as it were. We do that largely by asking the question of, is this something that is going to directly improve the platform to make students have a better experience, or is this something that will help attract new students, and get more people into the platform so that we can get more subscribers, more revenue, and then further build out the product and the business, right? So is it making this experience better in an impactful way, or is it something that will help attract new students? And if it's not, then we'll postpone it a little bit, and if it is, then we'll work on it. And yeah, that's some of the ways in which we manage it. And now that the product exists, like earlier on it was hard because it didn't really exist, but now that it exists, it's not terribly difficult to know what that filter is. Like if something's going to take more than like 2 weeks to build, that's, you probably need to break that task down a bit, right? It's probably too big. So that's another way that you do it. It's like if something is going to take too much time, then that means that you don't know the problem well enough. It needs to be broken down smaller. Must be easy to have scope creep when people like us are on Discord saying, Jacob, could you fix this now? Yes, that is a challenge sometimes, but we've gotten a lot better at being like, hold up, if it's not mission critical, we can wait for a second, for sure. As far as staying true to core objectives, I want to say that our core objectives are really known between us and the company. Don't you feel like that way, Nico? Like we actually really know what the core experience is.
Yeah, it's quite clear.
Yeah. Yeah. I am the most talked to CTO in the world.
It reminds me that, so our mission statement is make learning simple. And if you read a lot of business books, they talk about having your mission statement and your vision statement. And I always felt like it's just a bunch of BS. You go read some mission statement of a company online and it's change the world through, I don't, cat food or something like.
Yeah, whatever it may be. Mm.
Yeah, whatever. And it's just in one ear, not the other. And it always felt like fluff to me. And I despise fluff. So I am happily surprised that we actually eventually landed upon a mission statement that does relate to everything we talk about and do every day. So, like,
Yeah,
core objective is make learning simple. It's our mission statement. So, if what's going to do that? What is going to make the platform more effective at doing what it's supposed to do and get people learning in the way that we think they should? So, it's kind of nice to have a compass, so to speak.
yeah. I I do feel that way. Like we landed on a really clear um mission statement and vision and all of that that really does um help guide what we do in a non-superficial way.
Yeah.
Um well, I want to say that we've answered the majority of questions here. And I actually have a meeting in like 4 minutes. So
Oh,
so
okay.
we might have to end here. It's a little bit shorter than usual, but um, it's been fun. And thanks for your guys' questions. There's a couple more that would be fun to answer, and we can get them in the next week. Um,
There are no permanent questions. Yeah.
yeah, we got a lot of questions this week. It was fun. So yeah, we only got through like half of them. Um, so we'll answer some of those next week, and always feel free. Go to our Discord, discord.gg/NativShark, and you can join, or nativeshark.com/community. You can find us there. Follow us on Twitter, at Caleb Anderson, at NativShark, um, at Nico, but he's never there. So I think it's at Nico Shark. But yeah, follow me on Twitter.
Yeah.
Ask questions there.
I,
Ask questions on Discord.
I wish you luck in trying to get a hold of me personally.
Okay, quick sidebar. Funny story. Nico and I actually met through a Twitter DM. The one time he was ever on social media, it happened to happen, and
Yeah.
yeah. But now he's never there. So we do need a exclamation point socials. Ty, make that happen. All right. Thanks everyone. Take care. Talk to you guys next week. Looking forward to it. Yeah. See you later.
See ya. Thank you.